pushes me down the aisle. Carol, if I should have done nothing for you until you die.
This was the audio recording between Dr. Gerald Beck and his fiance on January 30th, 2021. Carol's name was Carol Tesh. Dr. Beck and Ms. Tesh grew up in a church family in South Data. Dr. Beck complained of being abused in childhood and moved to Florida in the late 70s. Tesh traveled to Florida many times but didn't visit him for more than 40 years until she was able to control his life with false fraudulent POA claim. He already refused her to be his POA in 2019, although he needed her help to survive, and she clearly stated no POA, no help. It looked like that he chose death rather than sign her to be his POA, but he was actually afraid that she could end his life with POA for his money and assets. Dr. Beck's nightmare started since Ms. Tesh was falsely labeled as his power of attorney POA based on her false claim without any legal document and without Dr. Beck's knowledge. On January 14, 2021, Dr. Beck was abducted to a skilled nursing home arranged against his will and his knowledge. Tesh met Dr. Beck in Florida for the first time in 40 years from January 24, 2021 to January 29, 2021. In the morning, January 24, 2021, she started her first meeting with the requests of the DNR, DNI, and hospice to give up his treatments which could cause the man in Parkinson's crisis to die. Luckily, he was kept in the hospital and continuously treated. On January 29, 2021, his condition turned out to be stable. Ms. Tesh asked the police to search Dr. Beck and her fiance's home for financial documents by falsely claiming the request was from Dr. Beck, while he didn't know anything at all. We can imagine how upset she might be when she knew that she couldn't touch his finances and he wouldn't die after 7 days traveling from South Dakota to Florida. In late evening January 29, 2021, she ended her 5 days meeting with the accident that happened during the time when she was with him in the ward. Dr. Beck's back turned from nearly normal healthy, turned to be 2 terrible bed sores. Both were at most dangerous locations with the highest death rates. The one on his coccyx turned to be a channel to the inside of his body and caused infection later. The Department of Child and Family was involved. On January 30th, 2021, confirming Tesh left and arrived at home in South Dakota, Dr. Beck felt safe and told his fiancée what Carol Tesh did on him.
He pushes me down the aisle to the area. Okay. Carol.
Carol pushed you what?
He pushed me down the aisle towards the area where they play the funeral music, okay? So you're supposed to take it up and lay down and they play the funeral music for you until you die, okay?
Wow.
It's pretty fucking cold, man, you know.
She's basically just almost a murderer to you.
Yeah.
It was an evil curse to use funeral words and to tell him to die. Dr. Beck had no choice and no help but had to be watched by his most fearful devil for 5 days and still under her control with false POA after she left. When Dr. Beck's fiancée strongly requested the investigation on Mr. Tesh's false POA and Beck's abandoned and isolated conditions in the nursing home, Tesh met Dr. Beck in Florida a second time. On March 9, 2021, Ms. Tesh came to the nursing home trying to make him sign the document. He refused. She spent only 1 hour with him under the social worker's supervision in her whole trip from South Dakota to Florida, and he said only one sentence during their 1-hour meeting: "Do I have to die tomorrow?" She meant nothing but death to him. 1 week after Ms. Tesh's visitation, the facility gave Dr. Beck sleep deprivation torture which almost killed him. The details are in different videos. April 13, 2021 was the 90th day since he was abducted to nursing homes against his will. He suffered a severe Parkinson's crisis after no Parkinson's medicine for days. His loving fiancée for 10 years was finally allowed to visit him, accompanying the guardian, for 1 hour.
His condition is better than most people, or just the average? It's average.
Well, actually, you know what? If I was to start giving him care, he would start talking.
Yes. Gerald, you need to tell me you want to live as long as possible, or you, Yes, right. Gerald, let's do it this way. If you said you want to live as long as possible, you raise your hand. You raise your hand. Higher. You put your hand higher, so I know you want to live as long as possible. Yes. So you just live one. Yes. You raise your hand means you want to live. You don't want to give up, right? Yes. You raise your hand. Raise your hand. Say yes. Yes. You don't want to give up. Okay. You never want to give up. I think that's what we discussed. You told me you don't want to give up. Would you please raise your hand again? Gerald, would you please raise your hand again? Yes, you raise your hand. Okay, that's high. Okay, that's high. Okay, that's good. That's good. So you wanna live as long as possible. Okay.
She asked if he wanted to do whatever to be alive. He clearly stated yes. She asked him to confirm his desire to be alive by raising his hand. She asked 3 times and he raised his hand 3 times. She told him that she would bring the video to the court to let the court know that he didn't want to die and Tesh's testimony was false. 3 hours after the loving couple's meeting, the devil of death appeared again.
Carol would call the hospital and read Psalm 23, have the nurse hold it up. Carol would call the hospital and read Psalm 23, have the nurse hold it up. Carol would call the hospital and read Psalm 23, have the nurse hold it up. And God's word is active and powerful on its own. And Carol made sure that Gerald had that word in his ear and the promises of God in his ear as he was preparing to go to heaven. Now, one of the things I love about the 23rd Psalm, of course, we all can almost, I mean, that's an assumption, but I'm pretty sure most of you can say this in your sleep.
Extreme scareness to Carol Tesh and her funeral words and physical weakness from Parkinson's crisis made him unable to resist the nurse's struggle on him. His heart beat slower and slower until stopped. The nurse was watching it for 16 minutes and called the doctor after his heart stopped. He disappeared physically but keeps his great soul haunting around and following the ones who made him suffer and destroyed his life forever. Psalm 23, called the funeral words, was the curse on him because it was used for funerals. Wikipedia had following explanation about Psalm 23, use in funerals edit in the 20th century. Psalm 23 became particularly associated with funeral liturgies in the English-speaking world, and films with funeral scenes often depict a graveside recitation of the Psalm 19. Official liturgies of English-speaking churches were slow to adopt this practice. The patient with multiple non-displaced fractures on the left chest doesn't need any special medical treatment but the time of 2 weeks to grow. He was killed and his suffering was outstanding in 90 days. What or who killed him? Psalm 23. Or, the person who cursed him with Psalm 23 and the nurse who struggled him. Please leave your comments to tell your opinions. Thanks for watching.